classes that missed the exhibit last week that we had here in the art room, I want to just cover some quick points that we went over, so you get a chance to kind of experience it as well. You can see we kind of transformed our art room into an art exhibit. Our exhibit was on Claude Monet. Now here we have a picture of Claude Monet, a photograph of what he looked like next to one of his large paintings of his water lily pond. His name up here shows next to it when he was born. He was born in Paris, France in 1840 and died in 1926 in Giverny, France, which was where he lived at the end of his life. It is also where he had these beautiful gardens with a pond, and he had his lily pads, and he painted them a lot. He loved to go outside and paint, which is called plein air painting. When you go outside with all of your painting tools and you paint, you can see the famous Japanese bridge in his gardens and his ponds that he's famous painting again and again and again. He would paint the same thing over and over. This is called having a series, like a series of these water lily pond pictures. He also had a series of haystack pictures. He would do that because he liked to see how the light changed from maybe the morning of this image and then to the afternoon. The light would hit the different areas and change the picture itself. And so we know we call the light areas tints and the dark areas shades. So that was something that he could do because there was an invention in 1841. Tubes of paint were invented, which weren't around prior to that. So people weren't able to go outside and paint. They had to paint in their studios. So it allowed Claude Monet to go out in his gardens and paint. And again, this was in his home in Giverny, France, where he died at the age of 86 in 1926. Down below here, there's a quote that says, "Monet was a gardener. It took time to understand my water lilies. I had planted them for pleasure, without ever thinking of painting them. A landscape does not permeate one's being in one day. And then suddenly the magical world of my pond was revealed to me. I took up my palette. Since that time, I have scarcely had any other model." So he loved to paint his gardens. And we know in the beginning of his life, when he was a young teenager, he liked to do caricatures, kind of those goofy self-portraits of people, where he would exaggerate their features. So that was caricatures, and this was kind of a different style towards the end of his life. He loved to do nature. He also loved to play with colors, and he would purposely not use black. After a certain time, I believe it was in the 1880s, he stopped using black in his pictures. And if you come in close to see the shaded areas, you can see instead of black, we have blues and purples and some browns and different colors. So he tried to stay away from black. He mostly wanted to play with all the other colors on his palette. Over here, there's a quote. It says, "It is very ugly," said Monet's famous teacher, Monsieur Glary. "You have faithfully painted the model's enormous feet and stocky body. Remember, young man, when we paint, we should always think back to the classical ideal, Rembrandt, Michelangelo. Nature offers no real interest." Well, Monet was flabbergasted, and he was quite angry. "I did not believe myself born to follow his pursuit of lost illusions and other nonsense. Truth, life, and nature provoked emotion in me. I would not stay." So he actually left his art teacher and the school he was at in Paris with some other students, and they decided to start painting outside. And they started to paint in a new style. The style was called Impressionism. So instead of using blended colors and brush strokes to reproduce kind of a photograph of an image, they started using short, separated bits of pure color to capture more feeling and to really play with those tints and shades that I talked about. So this was called the Impressionism style. Another artist we studied, Vincent van Gogh, did the style as well. Now, Impressionism, I think, is kind of like ish art in a way. Like we talked in the beginning of the school year about ish, making things look a certain way, but being okay with it being ish-like. So in this picture, the bathers at La Grenière, we have a river and boats and people, and there are bathers in the river. But if we go really close, you'll see that those people are really just people-ish. They give the impression of people, but they're really just kind of blobs and marks on the paper. So we don't see a lot of defined features. And that was part of the Impressionist style. They weren't so worried about it being perfect or being like a photograph. Over here is his other painting that we have in our exhibit. This was the celebration of June 30th. It was a holiday in France. You can see the flags and the people on the street. It's very similar to our 4th of July, especially with the red, white, and blue French flag. It looks almost like the US flag. But if you go close and look at all these people down on the street, it's very interesting to see that once again, it gave us the impression of people on a street, but they are just a lot of quick, short brush strokes. So I hope that gives you guys kind of an idea of who Claude Monet was and the style of painting that he did. I hope this answers some of your questions on your scavenger hunts that you have to fill out.